Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Tate. I'm President and CEO of the Greater St. Charles County Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to our Chamber U featuring Jane Grayson with Grayson Accounting, and she'll be talking about Beginning Quickbooks. But before we do that, we want to hear really quickly from our sponsor. We have the Villages of St. Peter's Memory Care today joining us. We have Kiva Ricketts. So Kiva, I'll turn it over to you, and we want to thank you for sponsoring us again.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kiva Ricketts. I do admissions and marketing here at the Villages of St. Peter's Memory Care. We're located behind the big luxury apartments on Mexico across from St. Peter's City Hall. And we're an assisted living memory care specializing in giving care to those folks with some form of dementia or Alzheimer's. So as you can imagine, we've been through a lot through COVID. We did have COVID. We got over it. We got through it and got a little stronger, I think. And we're actually in a position where we are able to give folks in need of a place for their loved one, a safe environment, in-person tours. So if you know anybody that has that need, feel free to send them my way and I can schedule an appointment with them. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And certainly you've got a great facility in St. Peter's that I think if people haven't had an opportunity to check it out for their loved ones, certainly need to give you a call and check that out. So thank you, Kiva, for, again, sponsoring today's presentation. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, next I'd like to introduce Jane Grayson. Jane is a board member. She's also an active member of the Chamber, and she's involved, I believe, with ambassadors, all kinds of stuff with the Chamber. But Jane is our Chamber's resident expert on QuickBooks. So we were really excited to hear that Jane was willing to talk about Beginning QuickBooks and kind of give people an overview on how to use it. So Jane, I'll just turn it over to you now.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome.
And thanks, Kiva, for sponsoring today. I had my mother and my mother-in-law at the Villages, not in the memory care portion, but in the rehab area, and they took really good care of both of them. So highly recommend Villages of St. Peter's. So I have been a certified pro advisor in the QuickBooks desktop version since 2004 and the online version since 2013, which I think was the first year that they had that. I worked in public accounting for 15 years doing QuickBooks for people and tax returns for individuals and corporations, but now I just specialize in the QuickBooks piece because that is my love. So there are a couple of things you need to consider when you're choosing which QuickBooks is best for you. Like, do you have a Mac or do you have a PC? Do you need mobile access to your file? How many users need to be in your file at the same time? Do you need to track inventory? Do you pay anyone that could potentially need a 1099? Do you need users with specific access or restricted access? All those matter in what you choose. There's the QuickBooks Online, which is what we're going to talk most about today. There's the desktop version for PC, and then there's QuickBooks for Mac. Commercials on television go kind of like this for QuickBooks Online. They go, and there's online accounting. And it's not really that easy. Thank you, but it's not that easy. So the three versions of online that are available are the Essentials version, which is very, very basic. It's a checkbook register. It keeps track of customers and vendors, but it doesn't do a whole lot. And there's some reporting that it just doesn't do. But if you just need some place to get started quick, Essentials will get you started. The Plus version is the next level of subscription. These are all subscription-based softwares. Most people, especially getting started, would fit in that Plus bucket of functionality and how many users you can have. And then the highest level is called Advanced. It's got the most functionality and the most depth as far as how many users can be in there at the same time, how many lines you can have in your list. So just depending on what you need is where where you can get started, but then you can always advance up to a higher level if you find that you're outgrowing the subscription that you have. Obviously, the more functionality that you need, the higher the cost is. They do have ways you can pay every month or you can pay the annual fee. But some of the advantages of the online version of QuickBooks is that you always will have the most current version. If they do an update, if they do a maintenance release, if they add functionality, it's just in your subscription. It's all included and there's no extra fee for any of those upgrades. You can log in anywhere that there's internet. If you have a lake house and you go to the lake, but you want to take your QuickBooks with you and catch up on some data entry, as long as there's Wi-Fi, there's internet access, you can access your file. It's also handy that your accountant can also access your file and you don't have to meet with them or send them a copy and then you can't work in your file because they're working in your file. So it's just nice that this live file can travel if you need that kind of mobility. You also do not have to have a dedicated server. If you have an internal network with software that's shared with people in your office, you probably need a server so everybody can access the same programs. And with QuickBooks Online, you don't need that because that's Intuit's responsibility. You don't have to make backups of your file. Technology happens is all I can say, and sometimes things don't work. If you have a local copy of QuickBooks, you have to make backups so that in case of data loss or equipment loss, you can restore your file again. So Intuit takes care of all those backups and you don't need to back it up. And Intuit also keeps your data secure. It is in the cloud, but it's secure. So you don't have to worry about that. To get started with QuickBooks Online, you need to purchase a subscription. There's some little charts on their website, that's intuit.com, that can help you make a choice. You can call the number and they can help you choose, or a QuickBooks Pro advisor like myself can talk you through all the choices and all the parameters and what you need and find the best fit for you. I get a discount on the QuickBooks subscriptions that I happily share with clients. It's usually better than whatever special of the day they have on their website. You need a federal ID number. Even if you are a sole proprietor, meaning you don't have a separate tax return, you're not required to have a separate ID number for starting a business because it all happens under your Social Security number. However, when you go to open bank accounts, people that send you a 1099 or you send other people a 1099, that's all going to have your social on it. And I really just highly recommend that you get a federal ID number for your business. It's free. You can do that at irs.gov. I can also help you with that, or your accountant can help you with that. You're not required to as a sole proprietor unless you have employees, but I still recommend that you do it. And then you need kind of a general idea of what do I need to track? There are little wizards. Can they see this screen yet, Scott? They can. On the side here?
Yes, yeah, they do.
Okay. So here's a little setup guide for invoicing. So there's little wizards like this all through QuickBooks for when your file is new that helps you get set up. But before you even get that far, you have to get a subscription. So some of the things to consider are you going to accept credit card payments? You can do that through your bank, or you can do it through Intuit right in your file. There's a fee, of course, that's extra for doing that. Your bank's going to charge it, or Intuit's going to charge it. Sometimes it's better to use the Intuit service because that connects the payment with the transaction without you having to do anything. If it's processed through your bank or another merchant services company, they'll tell you what they process, but it doesn't usually link it with the QuickBooks transaction. Are you going to have payroll or not? Do you have employees right out of the chute? Do you think you're going to add employees soon? You can do payroll right inside your QuickBooks file, or you can have a payroll service. Everybody's heard of the big three: Paychex, ADP, and Payroll One. But you can do payroll right inside of your QuickBooks file, which is also handy. But again, there's an additional fee for that subscription. Some people have a third-party software, like maybe you're a professional services provider, you're an architect, or you're a doctor, or you're an attorney, and you have attorney software that keeps track of all the things you need to track that are your industry specific, and then you just want to use QuickBooks for accounting and dump totals in. That's fine too. You just need to figure that out before you purchase your subscription. Do you need to track things by division? Like maybe you have a commercial division and a residential division, or maybe you have different locations, like a South County location and a West County location, and you want to know separately how they're making money. Just know ahead of time if you need to track things like that. Are you going to collect and remit sales tax? QuickBooks can do that for you. Some people track their sales tax inside of QuickBooks. Others have their POS system if it's a retail establishment, and you have another system that calculates your sales tax, and then we would track that a different way in QuickBooks. But it's something that you need to know before you make your selection. Will you need to create invoices customer by customer, or do you just need to record what happened for the day as a lump sum? There's advantages to both ways, but just know what you want to do before you choose. So here's a sample file that I have access to. Not every little piece of functionality works in a sample file, but it will give us a good idea of some of the navigation in QuickBooks. QuickBooks is basically a bunch of lists that work together. So there is a vendor list. A vendor list that has everybody that you purchase things from. A second. Oh, there it is. So this has a few. Can I scoot that up a little maybe? Well, I can't scroll down. But this gives you an idea.
You could use the bar on the right-hand side. You see the scroll bar on the right-hand side of there? You should be able to scroll down there.
I'm sorry. There we go.
There you go. Yep.
So this sample file has a lot of vendors already here. Then the next tab down is customers. So this is people who buy things from you if you track things customer by customer. Then there's inventory lists. Maybe you have specific things that you sell and you want to track them. The products and services list, please wait, is a list of things that you might sell to people, whether they're services. This particular company is a landscape guy, so he's got some service items in here. He has design services, he has concrete services, but then he also has some inventory parts, like a pump that might be maybe for a little pond or something in your yard, and a fountain. So some of these parts are services and some of them are inventory parts. There's also an employees list. This guy has 2, I think. Yep. So there are 2 in the sample file. And all these lists work together to create transactions. And so you can see reports of how your business is doing. A key part to getting good information so you can make good business decisions are having these lists set up correctly and having everything linked together correctly. There are, for instance, in the products and services list, if I want to add a new service that I'm going to provide. I name it, and then I have to say, what account do I want this to show up when I sell this service? If you pick an account that's not an income account here, it can cause a mess on your reports. So setup is really important. Knowing if a thing is taxable or not is really important. So before you jump in and buy a subscription, make sure you have those kind of things in the back of your head of what you want to track and how you want your reports to look. So QuickBooks Online is a work in progress. It has been that way since they started it. People make suggestions, and a lot of times they take customer suggestions and make them improvements or changes in the file. Sometimes you're excited to see a change. Sometimes you're not so excited to see a change. This button right here used to be in the middle of the screen. And I had a lady call me in tears one day. She logged into QuickBooks and her big plus sign was gone. And she didn't know what to do. Well, they moved it over here as an improvement, but she wasn't too excited about that until she found out where the button was. So while we're talking about that, in this gear, there is a place for feedback. And they really do look at those. You can hit the feedback button and say, boy, it would be great if QuickBooks could do this, and explain what you want. And it's kind of like voting. The more people that mention or complain about something, that's what they work on first. And they really do have every month, there's little webinars that I can do that say, oh, this is what we're changing. This is what we fixed this bug, or we're updating this to add this particular functionality. And we can watch these little videos to see what kind of stuff they're working on. So this is improving all the time. If you have an opinion about something, please hit the feedback button. I can tell you that I sit on that feedback button at least weekly of things that, oh man, it needs to do this, or wow, that's great. Thanks for adding this feature. Okay.
Do you want to see if there's any questions yet, Jane? Is this a good time? Does anybody have any questions at this point? Please type them in the comments or the chat section, and we'll bring them up for Jane. We'll give you a couple seconds to do that. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions yet, so we'll go ahead and let you continue on there.
Okay, so let's look at some of the basic navigation in QuickBooks. There are mostly two places that you'll do most of your work. This button here, I think they used to call it Quick Create. I think they call it Plus New now, but this is where you can start most of your transactions, and it's grouped nicely with a customer section. So anything that you would do with a customer, maybe you would create an invoice or receive a payment or make an estimate, or, oh, they ordered 3 and they only needed 2, so we're going to issue a credit memo. All these things that you can do that are customer related, the link to them is here. So you don't have to be in the specific customer. You can be, but you don't have to be. And then you can pick them from the drop down and make your invoice for whatever you're invoicing this customer for. Yes. There's a vendor column. So this is where you would record your expenses. What have you spent that's a business expense, and you need to track it so you know how your business is doing, but also for tax purposes. You can record things as an expense, either that you paid by credit card or maybe debit card. You can record a check that you wrote. You can enter a bill that you got from a vendor that just came in the mail or in your email. You can enter the bill. You can record the payment of the bill, or maybe a purchase order to order some more of whatever you order from that particular vendor. And then print checks is under the vendor list, which I guess is odd, but you could print any kind of check, not just vendor checks. So there are, I guess I could show you one of those. So here's what a check looks like. And most of QuickBooks is forms, and you just fill in the blanks. So you pick who you're going to pay. If you have more than one checking account, you pick that. A lot of people have separate accounts for payroll, or they have, right now they have PPP checking because they want to make sure when they pay things that are eligible for that PPP funding that they use PPP money. You pick the category and then some kind of description of what it was, the amount, and save it. And then QuickBooks records this in your checking register with the expense in the right category so you can track how you're spending your money. The employee section, you could start payroll from here. This little arrow means I'm not signed up for payroll. There's a timesheet in here. My employees log into QuickBooks and start a timesheet when they're working on a client, and then stop the timer when they're finished so we know how much time to bill to that specific client. You can also do a weekly timesheet if they track their time another way. Enter it on the weekly timesheet and it will all get transferred into payroll. Then there's the miscellaneous column, which is where you can do a bank deposit or a bank transfer, moving from checking to savings maybe, or moving money from the PPP account to your regular checking account, because that's where payroll comes from. Making a journal entry. That is when you know the debits and the credits that happen in a transaction, and you need to enter something that there's not a form for, you can make a journal entry. And then there's more things there. The other navigation is, of course, these tabs down here. There's a banking tab, expenses. If there's more, you'll get another drop down when you hover over it. Projects is a new thing that they have. There are some bugs in this, so I'm not talking too much about this right now until those get fixed. But they rolled out this project functionality that helps you track income and expenses by particular project, which is helpful if you're a contractor. The payroll tab, the reports tab. There's so much. It's like you could talk and talk just from clicking the tab. So there are lots of reports. This particular sample file has favorites. So as you scroll down through the list, there's just so many reports. Profit and loss, balance sheet, who owes you money? Several reports about that. Your customers and reports about customers. Money that you owe other people and 1099 reports. Expenses and vendors, sales tax if you do that, employees if you do that. And for my accountant, but some of them, if you notice, have little stars. If you click the box or click the little star, it adds it to that favorite box at the top. So instead of scrolling all the way down every time to find the 3 reports that you run every day, you can just make them favorites and they will be right there at the top for you. But lots and lots of reports. You can also save custom reports and groups of reports together on these tabs. Taxes is where you would manage sales tax and payroll tax. If you do payroll inside of your live file, this is where you would manage your payroll taxes that you owe to various government agencies. This is a cool one, mileage. And yeah, this is one of the things that you can't really see in a sample file, but you can add a trip and look at all the vehicles that are in your company and keep track of your mileage here. In the event of an IRS audit, one of the first things they ask you for if you're reporting auto expense is where's your mileage log. So you can have the little paper log that you carry in your car, or you can track it here and then it's right here in your in your software. And then accounting, 2 choices, takes us to chart of accounts and reconciling. This is the most important list that you have. Your chart of accounts is the list of your bank accounts, who owes you money, your inventory, your assets, income accounts, expense accounts. This is a list of all the accounts that you can use to record transactions. From the chart of accounts, you can run a report on a specific expense. If you hit the little caret, there are other choices. And that one's too much set up. So from the caret, you can edit the account. And let's do that for one of them, because Intuit really likes to say the same name on a couple of completely different kind of accounts, and that will be confusing later. So here's a truck that the company owns, and then original cost. If you notice, truck is all the way over to the left and then indented a little bit is depreciation and original cost. So this truck cost $13,495. And we don't have any depreciation yet because we're new, so we haven't had any depreciation. But I don't like that just says depreciation. I really want it to say accumulated depreciation, because that's what it is. So I'm going to click edit and just make it say that. Then I won't confuse that account with depreciation expense. Now it says accumulated depreciation there, not just depreciation. So you can look at the register, you can edit the name or the account number in an account, you can make it inactive, or run a report from all time. How much have I ever spent on telephone or whatever line you're in. The other big navigation point, after if it's not here, what you're looking for, it's probably in the gear. So in the gear, again, they're grouped nicely by stuff about your company, lists. So you can see all your lists from this link. You can see a way to get to customers, to vendors, to employees, to your products and services list, chart of accounts, everything is here. So we looked at our products and services, reoccurring transactions. If you have something that you pay every month, like a car payment or a rent payment or a utility bill, you can set up a recurring transaction to either enter automatically or to prompt you, don't forget to enter your car payment. Can also remind you to pay the car payment, which is a good thing. And then a place for attachments that we'll talk about later. So to start your file, if you have data tracked somewhere else in Excel or another software, there is a way to import data or export out if you need to move your file from QuickBooks Online to somewhere else. This used to be the only way you could get to the reconcile function. Now you can get to it down here as well. There's budgeting, audit log. That's an important thing. If you need to see who entered something, what day they entered it, or if somebody deleted something and you need to find out who, the audit log is where you get that. Then this is just profile stuff about you, and that feedback button that I really strongly suggest that you use. Okay.
Does anybody have any? See if there's any questions right now. Does anybody have any questions? We'll take a quick second here and see if anybody has any questions. All right, I guess we're still question free. You must be doing an amazing job. You must be doing an amazing job.
So the most easy way to enter a transaction and not mess it up is to do it on a form. Some people try to make too many journal entries in their file, and that's good if you really understand what the debit is and what the credit is, but forms are really the best way. So let's do a couple of samples. So I want to write a check. I got a bill in the mail from somebody, and I just want to write them a check. I don't want to enter a bill and have it sit in my payables. I just want to pay them. So let's pay me. So you can see that I'm not in the list because it's saying, do you want to add? Do you want to add? Do you want to add? And I do, because this is a new vendor to me. So when I click add, I have the chance to just save it and all that's in there is the name, or I can enter everything that I know about this company, the mailing address, which I'll probably need if I'm going to print a check. I want it to be on the check. All this contact information about this particular vendor. There's a place for notes, like maybe directions on how to get there if it's a vendor that I visit. There's an attachment. Maybe you need to attach an insurance certificate or an I-9 if it's somebody that works for you. There's just all kinds of attachments that you might need to have about this vendor. You can just hit the little, I'm not sure what will happen since we're in a sample. Oh, it does. Okay, so it wants me to navigate to the document. So you can attach anything that you can save to a computer, you can attach it to this vendor. I have one client that is a condo association, and if they have people sign up for ACH, we attach that ACH authorization to that particular customer. So customers have this, vendors have this, employees have a way to make an attachment, and even individual transactions do. I can say this vendor is eligible for a 1099 and even say what account I want to show up when I enter Grayson accounting on a transaction. So I'm going to save this, not putting the information in. Oh, maybe it's not going to let me do it because of that. Lightning speed internet. I don't know why it's not saving.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, well, let's cancel it. And it also could be because it's a sample file and it doesn't really want me to do that. So let's just pick somebody that's already in there. So we're going to go Books by Bessie. And all this sounds like a bookstore. Bessie is a bookkeeper. I just made that up. I don't know what Bessie is. So maybe I want to say what this is for. Maybe this is for June accounting. So I make a little note on there. Later, when I go back to this transaction, oh yeah, that was for June accounting. If Bessie calls me and says, hey, you didn't pay your bill for June. Yes, I did. Here it was. It was check number 71 and it was on this date. So again, if I need a bigger spot for a memo here, or maybe I want to attach the bill to this check so I don't have to have paper file cabinets, I can save copies of bills and receipts right on the transaction. If you notice now you get a receipt from the store and it's printed on the paper, unless it's in your wallet or the bottom of your purse for a couple of weeks and then all the ink is rubbed off. Well, if you scan that and attach it to the transaction, you have a good clean copy, which is good for tax purposes and for your reference. If you need to return something and you have to have the receipt, you don't have to keep paper. You can just attach it and drag the file right here. Okay, yes. Apparently you're uppity about that. Another way to enter is directly in a register. Now, if I go to my chart of accounts, those of us that are old enough to have remember what a checkbook register looks like. They used to give you, maybe they still do, I don't know. Oh my goodness. I can't tell if it's doing it or not doing it, and I'm just impatient. That couldn't be it.
Hard to say.
It is hard to say. Maybe this one will open. So anyway, a register will bring up a grid of what's gone in and out of an account. So if I paid personally for some attorney fees before I got started, this is really not going to let me open it. I can enter directly on the register if this loan payable is to me because I use personal money to pay for some things. I can just enter it in the register and increase the amount of the money that the company owes me back for things that I paid with personal money. You have a lot more of that when you're new because maybe you saw an attorney, maybe you paid to become an LLC, or you had some licensing that you needed to take care of, or software that you purchased before you actually started business. You have some money that is owed back to you, and you can track that in a loan. And one way to enter that transaction could be in the register if it would open. So a journal entry is another way. If you know those debits and credits, you have to have a date. You don't have to have a number, but it tries to make you put a number there. You can put your initials in the box, or you could put, maybe I paid an attorney fee. I'll do it this way. It'll let me make a journal entry. So I think lawyer is an account in this fee. Whoa, what is that? I don't want to add lawyer. There. So once you type in a box, QuickBooks will try to help you find the account that you need. So let's say I paid $500 to an attorney, and this was for startup. Consultation. But this was money that I put in. It wasn't my bank account, so I'm going to put this in my loan. So this is another way, instead of entering right in the register, that I could record money that I spent personally, save in new. And there, it saved my journal entry, and it brings up a new one if I have another journal entry to make. Or I could say save and close, and then it would close the screen and take me back to wherever I was before I started to make the journal entry. One transaction that has to be a journal entry is depreciation, because no money changes hands for depreciation. So if I make an entry because I want to record what my truck is depreciated every month, I'm making this number up too. Record depreciation for August. And remember that accumulated depreciation account that I changed? There it is. See, no money really changes hands. It's not money that I put in. It's not money that I received. It's just a tax deduction that I get. So if I say save and close, there's my transaction. And if I scroll down in the chart of accounts, see, there's $120 in there that wasn't there before. There's also a way to split a transaction. Let's say I'm going to make that car payment that I talked about, or my truck payment. So there's probably not going to be a vendor in here that has anything to do with trucks. We'll say it's the body shop. We bought this truck from the body shop. So if I have principal and interest that I need to record, I can do one on this line and one on this line. The total will be the total amount of the check that I wrote. So you can have more than one expense account. Another time you might need to do that is if you have an expense report or an employee has an expense report. Some of it's for fuel, some of it's for office supplies, some of it is for meals that you're reimbursing them for. You don't have to write 3 different checks to reimburse them. You can put just 3 different lines on the same check and record all those transactions on the same item. One question that I get a lot, if you noticed on our chart of accounts, these 2 little arrows going back and forth, that means these are connected with my bank. You could have a credit card. I don't know if there's a credit card in this file. There is a credit card, and it is also connected. So when I go to the banking tab, banking, because that's not redundant, it shows all the accounts that I have connected with the bank. So I can look at my MasterCard activity, my savings account, my checking account. And down in the grid are all the things that I need to deal with. These have all come through the bank, and I need to either match them, view them if I have no idea what that is, or if I look at it and it's Books by Bessie and I know that this is correct, I can add it. But look at this uncategorized income. If QuickBooks is not sure because there's not much history, it's going to guess on what expense account you like. And the very first time you pick travel expense, it's going to think, if I don't know, she wants it to be travel expense. So you have to give QuickBooks a little time and let it learn what kind of transactions you have. You can also set up rules. We'll talk about that more at the advanced class at the end of the month.
We do have a couple of questions here really quick.
Okay, sure.
And before I ask them, I just had a quick question. So when it's connected to the bank, does it automatically synchronize that information every night, or how often does it synchronize that information?
So you can choose that. And I can also just click update and have it sync now.
Oh, okay,
It
gotcha.
usually does it at least once a day, but some people like every hour, like to have it sync because they're updating their bank feed all day. But one of the biggest questions I get is, do I need to reconcile even when I use the bank feed? Mm-hmm. So, well, maybe we should go back to your questions. What other questions were there, Scott? Sorry.
Yeah, so really quick. This one here says, when they worked with QuickBooks in the past, it seems a little complicated than some of the newer softwares that are out there. And you're probably most familiar with QuickBooks yourself, being a certified QuickBooks person. But do you think QuickBooks is the best option for all businesses, or what's your feeling about that? It's certainly the most thorough, probably.
Well, I think it can be a lot of steps if you don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I think they do. Back to the commercial about 2 swipes on your phone and your accounting is done. They give the impression that accounting is easier than you think, or that it will do so much just automatically for you, which it can do a lot for you. But you do still need to have your hands in your accounting. Your tax return depends on what is in here. I have seen and worked with other softwares. Some of them are free, and I'll just say that you get what you pay for. You can get basic stuff done on little free apps that people have developed, but there comes a point where there's going to be something you need to track, and that software doesn't do it. QuickBooks is not a perfect fit for everybody. It's a good fit for a lot of businesses, but it's not a perfect fit for everybody. So yeah, if you have one that you like better, as long as it really does everything that you need it to do. And I would talk to your CPA about that. We converted several people during my time in public accounting from those little free softwares to QuickBooks because there are some reports that you just can't get that we need to prepare your tax return from. So there are more reasons than just getting data in a file for accounting. Your tax return depends on what's in there and what you can get out of it.
Okay. And then we have the other question is dealing with scanning the receipts. Does QuickBooks offer a photo taking or scanning from an online phone app that will put it right into the account, or do you have to use a different option? Is it because probably most people are going to use their phone somehow? And is there an option to allow employees to scan the receipts and upload them, or what are some of those options?
So I have a client that takes a picture of every receipt and emails it to me. And then I drag that receipt from my email onto the transaction in QuickBooks. So we don't have a specific app that does that. And I'm sure there are so many apps that connect with QuickBooks and so many apps that maybe don't connect with QuickBooks, but you could get it from your phone to your desktop and then drag it into the QuickBooks file. But yes, there's all kinds of technology out there that can help you with that. Employees can add their own receipts if they have a login to get into your file and that permission that they're allowed to see expenses. So that's and it depends, but yes, you can.
Okay. Very good. Well, that's all the questions we have. So I don't know if you have more you want to share. We'll bring that screen back up and let you talk about whatever's next.
Yeah. So the big question is, why do I have to reconcile my bank account if I have a bank feed? So there is in the accounting section functionality called reconcile. And this is a harder concept to get across, I think, to younger people. If you're old like me, you reconcile your personal bank account. Nobody does that anymore.
Right.
It's very important to reconcile your bank account, and here's why. So back up in this banking feed, here's all the things that the bank wants to push to my account. Now, these ones I don't hesitate about because I entered this deposit and it found it. It matched it, said, yep, I see that one, let's match it. I know that one is right because I entered it, and it just is clearing the bank now because it's a match. So this one, there's two records. So, well, which one is it? So there's an expense to Pam, and there's a bill payment to Books by Bessie that both happen to be $75. So which one is this one? So there's some messes that can be made if you pick the wrong answer in this bank feed. I've also had clients that transactions get skipped. I had a lady that came to me that hadn't entered one thing since 2018. This was a few weeks ago. She said, can you help me? I don't think you need to reconcile because I use the bank feed. I'm like, nope, I still want to see the bank statements and let's reconcile. And we found 5 or 6 transactions that just didn't come through the bank feed. So if you mismatch something, is it easy to fix? Yes, you have to unmatch it first and then go back to it. Depending on what the mismatch is. But generally you can unmatch it and then just fix it. Okay. Sometimes you don't have to unmatch it. You can just fix it right there. Like if the vendor name was wrong, you can fix the vendor name just in the register. Okay. So that particular lady would have missed 5 tax deductions because they just didn't come through the bank feed. I have another client that comes through the bank feed at night, and if you don't click add, it pushes it through again. So he has stuff in there 2 or 3 times, and they're all the same transactions, and that's a big mess. He was always calling me, my bank is showing overdrawn in QuickBooks and it's not at the bank. Why is that happening? Well, because every expense is getting recorded 3 times. So you're not really spending 3 things at the gas station and 3 things at Walmart. It's just 1. So then we would have to go find the extra ones and delete them. I have other clients that it works like a charm and they never have an issue. But it's still a good idea to do that reconcile because then you're sure. You're sure you're not missing anything. You're sure there's no duplications. You don't want a deposit to get in there twice and then you pay tax on twice as much money than you got. So Just a couple of reasons why, yes, reconciling is important. I say try the bank feed, and if it works for you, great. It more depends on your bank. QuickBooks is QuickBooks, so it really depends more on your bank, and there's Web Connect, there's Direct Connect, there's different softwares that banks use to push the information. So some are better than others at that functionality. So I say just try it. What do we do? How are we doing on time? We're okay. So let's look at a couple reports. There are 2 reports that your accountant will use to prepare your tax return. One of them is profit and loss. We're just going to look at whatever comes up. So this is a report of my income. This guy is a landscape guy, so he does design work. He gave a little bit of discounts. He has some landscaping services. And then when he sells lighting or soil or drip systems, he makes a little money there too. He has income from labor because he charges for labor. And then this is his total for, what period are we in? Just the month probably. Oh no, so this is January through August the 6th. Now I can change that if I don't want to see year to date and I just want to see this month. I can change the date and then I can just look at this month. Maybe I'm looking for something specific that happened in this month. And there it is. There's my lawyer fee that I entered. I can click on that. Anytime you hover over something and it turns blue with the line, that's a link. So this is called drilling down. I can drill down and see the list of everything that's in lawyer fees. I can also click again and get back to the original transaction that was entered, which was that journal entry that we did. So in addition to the profit and loss, the other report that your CPA will need is your balance sheet. And it's important to know the difference. The profit and loss shows income and expenses. The balance sheet shows stuff you own, like your cash, your accounts receivable, your truck, your inventory. And then, see, there's my accumulated depreciation that we changed the name. And that's negative. We'll talk about that in a second. Accounts payable. So I think, wow, I have all this money. Look at that. In my bank account, I'm pretty pumped. I have $2,000, except, Jane, you owe $1,600 of it to vendors. So this can also give you a picture of the money side of things. So here's my credit card that I have a balance of. Here's some taxes that I owe. And this is that amount owed back to me. As soon as the company can afford to pay me, I can repay that loan. This note might be to my truck. It might be for a startup loan. So there's things on this balance sheet that may go on your tax return also. So those 2 reports are helpful to look at just to kind of see where you stand. Some quick do's and don'ts of QuickBooks. It's a good idea to keep your books assuming that you're going to get audited by the IRS. The chances of that are pretty slim, but if you do get audited, you will be ready. Small business owners have a higher percentage than non-business owners of getting audited just because people try to cheat on their taxes, not record cash transactions, do some things that sometimes on purpose, sometimes not on purpose. But it is a category of higher audit instance with the IRS. So if you are diligent with your data entry, you attach receipts to your transactions, or at least have a paper file of them so that if asked for a transaction receipt, you can provide it. If you get audited, the burden of proof is on the taxpayer. So you can't say, well, they can just prove that I didn't spend that for my business. No, they can disallow it if you can't prove it. So the burden of proof is on you. Another good idea is for however many users you have, you might say, well, we only have 5 users in our subscription, but we have 7 people that need to log in. So we're just going to share credentials, or I'm just going to let everybody use my credentials. That is not a good idea. There's security reasons you don't want to do that. Also, if you need to go back and say, boy, somebody's making this same mistake over and over again. Who is it? There are ways to see who entered particular transactions, and you can go to that employee and say, oh, hey, we noticed that every time you enter a check, you're doing this, and we really need you to enter it this way. Then that helps you narrow that person down. Or if somebody is dishonest, you can also see who was logged in and who made particular entries or who deleted things. Keeping current is a really good idea. Set up a schedule that maybe once a week you get your QuickBooks caught up, get your data in there, get everything matched from the bank feed so that you know you're up to date. You can't run a business if you don't know how you're doing, and accounting is one of the best ways to know how you're doing. So if you keep up to date with that, you can make better decisions. Plus, it's just less stressful. That lady that came to me that hadn't done data entry in 2 years was pretty stressed because it was just overwhelming to her to get all that caught up. There are tips and tricks on data entry, how to do things efficiently and quickly without taking shortcuts that don't give you the right information. So learn those tips and tricks. We're doing another webinar at the end of the month. I don't know what day, but check out the Chamber website and you can see when that is, just to learn some tips and tricks. What I'm doing is correct, but man, I could maybe do this a little faster. I can teach you some tips and tricks at the next session. There's a way to memorize transactions. We talked about that a little bit. So if I look at the recurring transactions list, this is a phone bill. I have my same phone bill every month, and I just want it to be entered every month. So I can use it if it's not one that's automatically entered, because maybe I get the bill, but it's not this exact dollar amount every month. I wouldn't want that automatically entered, but I want everything else in the transaction. It saves time so I don't have to enter all that stuff every time. I can edit it. Maybe it's usually on the 1st. Maybe that gets changed and it's going to be on the 5th now. So I can change that and save the template. So I don't have to fill out all these boxes every time. If I memorize it, most of it's there and I can change the part that I need to change. So memorized transactions are a handy thing. And automatically entered ones are great too if something is the same amount, like your rent is the same amount every month. You could enter it so that it automatically occurs and you don't have to worry about that. A closing password is something we didn't really talk about, and we didn't talk about these things either. How are we doing on time? Okay. So in account and settings, there are a lot of choices to be made in here. So these tabs on the side open up different areas. Anytime you see a little pencil, that's how you can change things. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of light, but there's a logo here. You can add your logo to your file so that when you do print invoices and print checks or print estimates, your logo shows up on it. It just looks professional. I had a client that has 2 businesses and he wanted both of his logos in there, so we had to figure it out, but we got 2 logos merged into one PDF, and he has both logos now on his invoices, so he was pretty happy about that. So information about your company is this first tab. If you move, you start out at the EDC or in your basement, and that's the address that's here. Later, you move to another building because you're an international corporation now and you need to change your address. Click a little pencil and change your address. So usage, there are in this file 5 users because that's what this company has paid for, but it tells you how many you've used. If you're not sure, how many do we have? And chart of accounts, you can have up to 250 in this. If you need more than 250, you have to go to that advanced level. But I've got 44, so I've got room to add some if I need to. And of course, they always want to sell you something that's greater and bigger. So here's lots of things to choose. What do I want my preferred invoice terms to be? Do I want it to be net 30 days? Do I want it to be 10 days? Is it 90 days? What is it? So you can change that here and it will automatically populate on your sales forms. If there's things that you don't do, maybe you don't provide shipping. You have a store, so you don't need to ship. You turn that off. You don't take deposits from people, so turn that off. It limits what you see, so you're not fishing through a bunch of menus that don't apply to your business. Just all these choices that you have. Expenses. There's less on this tab. And then there's advanced, which is more accounting things. Do you know if you're going to file your taxes accrual or cash basis? Do you know what that means? Cash basis means you will record, or your reports will show what you actually received only, not what's owed to you. If it's accrual basis, reports will show invoices from customers, whether they've paid them or not. Both numbers are useful, but that's something that you choose, accrual or cash. So some of these are drop downs, some of them are radio buttons that you can turn on. Closing the books. I highly, highly recommend that you use this. QuickBooks does not have a hard close. Old school accounting softwares or very expensive accounting softwares, you can't just change a transaction if you make a mistake. You have to make an entry to correct your entry. And if that entry is wrong, you have to make an entry to correct your entry. QuickBooks, you can just change it unless it's in a closed period, which you have to manually say, I don't want anybody to be able to make any changes to transactions before a certain date. Examples of that would be if you have a financial statement issued or if you have a tax return done, you don't want your books to change after those official documents have been issued. So you would put a closing date, usually the end of the year. And then that you either allow changes after a warning, that's like not even doing it because you can click right through that, or that someone has to enter a password. If your accountant wants to make an entry in the closed period, I think it's okay for them to do that. Whether you want to use account numbers or not. That's a setting. Some people like to have numbers on their accounts. To them, 4010 means sales, and that's what they want this to be in QuickBooks. So then you would have to turn that. Oh no, because we're just making all this up. You can say that you want account numbers to go on. And I want to show them. So when I print reports, my account numbers are on there, and that makes me happy because I know that 4010 is revenue. Yes. So lots of things to choose up in your account and settings, but important thing is that closing password, because you don't want someone accidentally changing something in a period that already has a tax return issued. So in your first year, that's not an issue, but in your second year, it is. Putting good memos in a transaction is a good thing too. It really helps you remember what happened. If you do get audited, which I teach everybody to enter their transactions, assuming they'll be audited. If you have a good memo there, it will help you remember because the IRS is about 2 years behind doing that. And you're not going to remember what you did in 2018 if the memo just says supplies and they want you to prove that it was business supplies, you got nothing. So where's your receipt and where's your good memo? Also be careful about accounts that mean the same thing. Like you have an expense account that says office supplies and one that says office expense, and you really put the same kind of stuff in both accounts. It just makes your reports messier if you have duplicated accounts that mean the same thing. Shipping and freight is another good example of that. Well, it's the same thing. Just use one line. And just know that whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. You can't put in the minimum amount of detail and expect to get detailed reports at the end. So don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help. Your CPA can help you. I can help you. There's help up here where you can type a question in. So I think we're getting pretty close to when we need to stop. Any questions from anybody else?
We'll give them a few minutes here to try to respond to that. But in the meantime, I just want to point out that we've got Jane's contact information. You can go to her website. Her website is GraysonAccountingLLC.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you could see her phone number up there at the top. You could submit an email to her through the website, the contact page and all that. So anyway, I'm not seeing any questions come up, Jane, but thank you very much for once again for doing this for us. It looks like somebody is putting out there when our next one is. So Advanced QuickBooks is going to be on Wednesday, August 26th at 11:30. So we'll be online again. So if you're interested in doing that, you could sign up through the Chamber's website, but it'll be another live stream again. And hopefully people are able to pick out a few things, especially if they're looking at maybe changing their accounting software. At least you can provide them some input on what some of that accounting software is or what QuickBooks could do. And then, if they have any questions, they can contact you. But then ultimately, if they switch and they have questions about more advanced stuff, we'll have that available to them later this month. So thank you, Jane, for being here today. We also want to thank Villages of St. Peter's Memory Care for sponsoring the Chamber University. And hopefully we'll see a lot of the same people again later this month. So have a great day. And thanks again, Jen. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Everybody mask up, wash your hands.
That's right.